Oh,
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm here today with Professor JJ from UC Irvine. How are you doing?
very fine. Bring on the Zot.
Zat zat. That was our symbol when we went to school together. Well, thank you.
That's right. And my background is the center of UCI Aldridge Park. So free entry.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm so excited to have a chance to speak with you. I've been wanting to have you come on the channel for a while to interview you because you were all of our favorite professors at UC Irvine when we were going to grad school there. So thank you for making the time and being here.
What a treat it is. And I am taking in not just my background, but all of you, Pantia. It is you've got it all in one little space. It's so good vibes.
Thank you so much. Well, would you mind starting and telling everybody a little bit about how you ended up being a professor at UC Irvine? Because I think everybody would love to know.
So, the Beatles said it best. Life is a long and winding road, and I grew up in Chicago, as you know, home of the Cubs, world champs at some point. And then I was lost in the world of business in my degree in business management, and everybody was focused on making money. And not that we don't all need it, but I didn't need that to be my focus. And so somehow I was founded by the world of leisure and the fulfillment of just being. And so I moved to UC Irvine, hired by the Anthill. And while I was working, we went through a really tough financial budget crunch. And so I volunteered to do some PE classes out of just everybody chipping in. And the little light bulb or the archangels came singing in because they said, "This is what you need to be doing. This is you." And I fell in love with teaching really by accident, just because I was volunteering to help out. And next thing you know, I'm going back, getting an advanced degree in social and religious ethics. And then the School of Education hired me to teach a class, and then that went well, and I taught a few more. And then next thing you know, I'm full-time teaching in School of Education, which included having you, a little superstar, in our physical education class to help young elementary students learn how to be themselves out in the world physically.
Yes. I mean, and your class was the most interesting one because I remember we all had so many hard classes in that program. And your class was the one where we were like, okay, it's a hard class. He makes us work out every time, but at least like it's fun and he puts on music and you always had a different lesson plan and all these different things laid out. So it was the one class that we all looked forward to. And could you share a little bit about that, like your philosophy in terms of like PE and physical education? Because I mean, looking around the world right now, it doesn't seem like a lot of the kids are too healthy, you know? So would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Well, you are you sadly got some accuracy there in the United States, at least. The obesity rate has just gone up ever since. We used to call them couch potatoes. Now I call them mouse potatoes because they're just on their computers and they're not getting off the couch or the computer screen and getting action. So, if God intended us to just be these little heads and sit on shelves and talk, that might be okay. But we're a lot more than that. And so, because of that, I'm a strong believer in the education of the whole self. And when I say education, I mean mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and even though you're being physical, you're actually advancing all those elements simultaneously. And so my philosophy has always been as a teacher that students, even you, experience the full lesson. So we don't want to just be sitting at desks and reading about what we should be doing. We should be doing. And so we meet in the backcourt gym of the Anteater Rec Center, and everybody runs around like first graders. And we play everything from tag to cooperative games. But the whole ultimate goal is everyone discovers it's okay to fall down and get back up. It's okay to take risks. It's good to have a teammate to work with. It's good to show class to the person you're playing against. All these lessons, you have to live them to understand them. And it's really actually a lot of FUN when we get college students, master students who are working really hard to remember what it's like to be a child again. And because that's who you're going to be teaching. So if you're going to try to connect to them, you need to connect to your old self and renew that spirit of youthfulness and playfulness because play is one of the great experiences of life, but it's also a great teacher. And so my philosophy has always been let's be active so that we get the most out of ourselves and then we put more into ourselves. So that's my little nutshell.
Yes, yes. I love that because it makes the lessons memorable. Like I remember the lessons you did with us. It was like what 11, 12 years ago, something like that, when we were all in your class. But me and the girls go to dinner and we still talk about the sharks and seaweed game you would have us play, right? Like who's gonna be shark? TV. And when I was teaching in the schools, I would play with the kids and we would do that game and they loved it, because just getting them to do push-ups or something, like it's so boring. But when it's some kind of an interactive game and they get to use their imagination, it's almost like they forget it's physical education. And like you said, like play and fun is such an important part of it, right?
Yeah, I like to call it stealth health. It's like go out and enjoy life. And if you're out doing, you're going to be getting healthy. You're going to have all these benefits but they don't have to be that you have to go to a gym, or whatever. It's more, live in the world, be part of the world. And if you have more physical confidence, it's going to help you do those things and find your best self on many levels, aspects of who you can be. So even though they're just a first grader, our dear friend Aristotle, when I was in grad school, said it's all about having our young ones experience life in its totality right away so that they get hooked to be in life. And those foundations really set the patterns moving forward. Not that we can't change, because we can always learn a lesson, go, I shouldn't have, I want to change course, but it's harder. Nothing's easier than when a child starts to give them these tools to get the most out of their life. And so I'm a big believer in that. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I know if I hadn't played sports when I was a little girl, I probably wouldn't have started like in high school or something. Like when my dad had me playing soccer and doing martial arts since I was a little girl. And I feel like that got me to like enjoy it. And it was like fun. So speaking of that, could you talk to us a little bit about flow? Because you were speaking earlier before we started reading about flow and this concept of like being in the zone, like Kobe's in the zone, he's making these shots, like, so can you explain to us what that
right. Yeah, and let it be known that this is the first day I've been studying flow since 1986, but today is the first day. So your people, whoever clicks on this is live bootleg material. Thanks to Pantia bringing up flow accidentally, and I was like, you just hit on my thesis in grad school from 40 years ago. So I'm going to say what flow traditionally is, and then what Pantia and I kind of discovered as we were talking, which I think is a higher level, actually. So the traditional definition of flow um, is, and there was a Russian philosopher, psychologist who studied flow, and flow is basically how do athletes get in the zone? What do they got to do to get in the zone? And he studied various types of athletes, from rock climbers to chess players, and said, well, to get in the zone, you have to eliminate all distractions and just be focused on the task at hand. You're not going to notice really what the score is, what time it is, who's in the audience. You're going to be so into it that you'll perform at your highest level because there's no distractions. And it's very hard to get there. It's hard to take out all these irrelevant distractions. So that's a fascinating topic for coaches and sports psychologists and etc. However, today, thanks to our host Pontia, we were talking about flow, and it dawned on me that really flow should be much more than about performance. Performance is nice. We like to optimize that. But really, flow as a human being means can I flow, allow everything without judging every action I do or worrying about the results or whatever is can I just experience myself, let myself be my full self and let me flow. Let me be the person I'm meant to be, which we get distractions from every angle from our parents, our friends, the media, the way the culture operates. There's a lot that can distract us. So if we could find ourselves through it all and flow naturally, then we're going to be, I think, our greatest gift to humankind, by doing that. So, but it's not easy to do. So you have to make efforts to kind of find yourself and let it be. Another Beatles song, Let It Be.
Beatles are very
I know
smart.
I've rambled a little bit there.
No, that was so helpful. And
What's that?
that was so helpful because I feel like so many people are kind of like not being their full self, like they are kind of like go do this, but they're not actually just flowing and being authentic and being their full self. And we probably all had moments where we felt that, and it's just like, oh my God, it feels so good. This is me. Like Joseph Campbell used to say, follow your bliss. Like probably when you found physical education, you felt blissful, so you were in the flow. It was like natural to you. But yeah, it's like it would be imagine
Yeah.
the whole world, all the kids knew what they were good at and they were in the flow. Our world would just be running amazing, right? So I think this is a really important topic. You
I
reckon?
have to agree with that.
Yes. So
And I think the other thing you reminded me of that I tell the students in my coaching class, something I think we do, especially in our American society, and I can't speak to all the other ones, but that old phrase about smelling the roses as we go is, when you're coaching a team and you're trying to win and you have these achievement goals, you may miss the higher goal, which is to just experience your team, just experience the moment, just to win or lose, say we were got to get together and have the privilege of playing, and a lot of times when you're the adult leader, you want to make sure you accomplish certain things and not saying those things are not important, just saying don't miss the bigger picture, which is enjoy the mistakes that are made in front of you. There are many things that are funny and laughable, and it's okay as opposed to, oh, that cost us the win. It's like, is that really all that matters when we get together? And so I'm always reminding my students, try to enjoy this process because at the end of it, that's probably the biggest thing we're doing.
exactly. It's almost like slowing down the movie and actually like being in the scene we're in. Like this moment, I'm playing with
Mhm.
my friends. Like, am I going to remember this? Like, and because yeah, at the end of our life, that's all it's going to be, right? We're just going to have like a little reel of memories and that'll be our life. So if we've kind of just gone through it fast trying to achieve, it's going to be not that interesting. But instead, if we slow down, it's like, oh, remember that lunch we had? That was so beautiful or something like that. So I like.
Yeah, that is well said. And one thing we say in the ethics class is, not to be too morbid or anything, but I say, when you go to a funeral or you listen to someone's eulogy, no one's talking about, oh, they won 12 championships and came in second place three times and whatever. They talk about what kind of person you experience. They talk about the friendship. They talk about whatever the relationship was and what it meant to you, whether it was generosity or kindness or whatever those things were. Those are the lasting impressions. And I think every avenue that at least I try to teach through, whether it's an ethics class or a coaching class or a PE class, those are just context. At the end of the day, I'm hoping we're connecting for meaning, for purpose that is permanent in their experience of life itself. So, because nobody cares how good you were at something really as far as achievement compared to how you were treated or,
Exactly.
what the relationship was. So
Yeah, I think that's
even
what all the students loved about you is that you treated everybody with respect, you knew everybody's names, which is no offense, but so rare for a UC professor. I'm so sorry to say this if other UC professors
Mm.
are watching this, but most of them, they have a room full of kids. They probably don't even know their names. They're just giving them midterms and finals, and they're focused on the research and publishing. That's just like, and I get there's a pressure from the administration for that, but somehow you manage to still be a professor, still get to know the students and actually care about them. And I remember you would even have conferences that people were like having a hard time and stuff. So could you talk a little bit about that? Like, is it like your backgrounds in ethics? Is it your spirituality? Because you said you study spirituality as well. So what was it that made you this kind of a teacher and this kind of a human? Or you know what I mean? What advice do you have about that?
That's let me put that through my puzzler. Um, because life is always putting these little pieces together, and then all of a sudden there you are. And I remember even in high school, I used to keep a journal of my thoughts, and I still have those journals. And I'm a little older than high school now. And I kind of feel like because I was very grateful. I just to rattle off some of the jobs I had growing up. I was a paper boy. I worked in a factory. I was a caddy, which is someone who carries golf bags. I worked in companies downtown Chicago. I was a youth pastor. And then I was an administrator. I mean, a bartender through grad school. I needed to pay my bills, so I was bartended for 3 years. And all these jobs, I guess I always felt blessed to have them. I mean, they were all fine. I wouldn't say any of them were my calling, but every one of them I was like meeting people and learning some new life skills and paying bills and all those things. But nothing floated and I was a head coach at UCI. I was the head coach of the golf team. And I really got more interested in the players than their results. I still to this day, I've been to a couple of their weddings, and I just realized I was really fascinated by them, the human. And even if they weren't my best player, if I enjoyed having them on the team, that's really what made me tick. I wasn't like, dude, you got to get your game together. That was not what I was doing. I wanted them to do well, and of course, that is nice in its own right. But I was told the students and the athletes, there are big W's and there are little W's. And the little W's are what you do on the golf course or in the match or whatever. The big W's are going to be how you treat each other and how you treat yourself and how you treat nature and all these different things. And that's just been with me forever. And I think what was key for me was to find outlets that let me be me. So teaching allowed me to really get to kind of
Mm.
live out my philosophy of life and connect with other people because they might like that too. And not that the other jobs didn't matter because they did. They built part of who I am for sure, every opportunity can. But at the end of the day, teaching became this thing where I was just really pushed to not just teach, meaning not just impart knowledge, because I was a student. I know what that's like. And I was pretty bored most of the time. And so I was trying to overcome that. I was like, how do I overcome the student that's like me, who doesn't always want to be there? And I realized you know what? Instead of coming in and just seeing this blank professor in the front, what if you actually said good morning to JJ and he says good morning to you? And then I ask about your weekend. And then next thing you know, we snowball into this like, hey, we're looking forward to seeing each other, And I think all of that, and then I'm getting paid for it. Come on. This is too good. So,
I love that.
being in the class with the students, other people, is just an amazing experience to go on a little journey together, or whatever that topic is. And so now I've been at UCI 36 years.
Oh, a long
And my last comment about PE is I've been biking the
time.
campus for 36 years. And so I'm not in the traffic. I'm not in, I got to find a parking space, I'm not using gas. And so I've been really lucky that that's my cup of coffee, whether it's 2 miles or now presently 12 miles. I'm always going to work getting kind of some momentum into life, because that's what makes me beat is being active. So I always tell my students try to find what makes you beat, and then don't let anything really get in your way. Just set your sails and give it your best shot.
Mhm. And when you say that, what makes you beat is like you mean like what makes them happy, what makes them joyful. Like for you, like biking is like,
Yeah, finding
yeah.
right, right. And all of us, I think, all of us have many, many aspects to ourselves. We're so multifaceted. So, I can love biking and I can also love sitting in a hammock. I can love sweets and I can love really healthy vegetables. I mean, I can love being on a Zoom with you, but I also really like meeting people in person. And there's so many aspects to us. I think we have to find those as we go and take note, pay attention, going, hey, that kind of lit me up. I really, walking through nature really lights me up when I come across water running, whatever it is. Pay attention to it so that you do it more often and you keep refueling yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
Oops, I didn't hear you because I don't know if
I was
I.
sorry, I was talking over you, but I was saying that's probably the secret to happiness. Do more of what, like the things you notice make you happy, just do them more, and then you'll just be happy, you know? Exactly. Whereas most people just kind of, like you said, they're doing like the like logistical things, like I have to finish this work project, I have to do this, instead of like, I really love the ocean. I should go to the ocean 2, 3 times a week. Why not? You know, instead of going straight home, I can stop by the ocean, and then it's kind of bringing up their joy meter. And I think like humans are intended to be,
Well said.
right? Like we were talking earlier about how
Human what?
humans, I think, are meant to be happy, you know? Like I think God created us, like we were talking earlier, God wants us to enjoy the kingdom, like the heaven that He's created for us on earth. He and she, whatever you believe in, wants us to enjoy that world. So I think then when people,
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that.
yeah,
And sometimes it requires you to make, like you were saying, go down to the ocean. I used to grade papers down at the ocean because I knew I had work to do, but I was just trying to make it a more enjoyable experience, right? So it doesn't mean we don't do our responsibilities. It doesn't mean we're not paying our bills. I mean, I've had to do that for a long, long time, but surround myself with the things that are going to make that the best they can be. And put me in the right frame of mind because that student deserves the best of me when I'm grading, and so I'm just trying to find all those kind of like you would call it team JJ or team Panteos. Find all the angels or whoever can help you out to put you in that spot that's going to get the most out of you and to do it with a little bit of a smile, at least inwardly. So,
I love that. I love that. And speaking of that, could you talk to us a little bit about like ethics and character? 'Cause that's another subject that you're teaching. And could you talk about like what that means in the modern world? Because sometimes people kind of get confused on those topics and how it actually affects our day-to-day life, and I've had to learn that as well. But could you talk a little bit about that?
yeah, thank you. So that was my first passion in when I came back to teach, like serious teaching, if you will, is I felt a void in education where, for me, just me, maybe, the highest purpose of education should be building good people. And at the end of the day, I look at our education system and I go, I don't know who really cares what year the war of Vietnam started and ended. I mean, it's important to understand why we're in a war and should we be in a war and these kinds of things. I mean, there's moral issues throughout history we should be talking about, in my opinion. But besides all these facts and figures, and not saying we don't need math, not saying we don't need English, I get all that. But the highest purpose of education should be character. good, I want to know that when my son went to school, that he's becoming a better human being because we're all in this together, as we say. And so I want to know when I release my child into someone else's care that they care about that, that they want to see this person become a good functioning contributor. And so I decided that's why I chose to study ethics because I felt like, that is asking those questions. How should we do things? How should we treat people? And we can debate it. There's lots of different rational answers. So I'm not judging one answer is better necessarily, but I'm saying we should be asking ourselves these questions and figuring out what is the best way to have people behave on a playground that's going to build community and not just fights, or whatever. Or when a fight occurs, do we ignore it or do we step in and teach about how do we overcome this difference of opinion or someone picking on someone else? We should be talking and discussing so that the next time it happens, you're a little better at it. And then we have a few less fights, right? So that was my whole thing. And now this class started with 30 students called Ethics for Teachers. And it got to where now it's 140 students, and the dean wants me to keep taking more because of our waiting lists. And all that tells me is students want to talk about these things. These are interesting, they're engaging, they're purposeful, and they leave class saying, "Yeah, you got me thinking. You got me thinking." And what a great benefit of education is if you leave a room going, I still want to keep thinking about that topic, as opposed to, will this be on the test? You know, I don't care if it's on the test. I care if it matters to you. I care if it matters to anyone in the room. If it doesn't, we need to change subjects. So luckily I get to teach what I really am passionate about, but I also find the UCI students are very passionate because we have waiting lists out the door. So at the end of the day, we're going to have fun. That's a number one rule of mine learning. And we're also going to go deep. We're going to try to do both at the same moment because I don't think life should be about either or. Do you believe this or do you believe that? Believe both. You can do both. You can have and be the connecting word as opposed to opposed. So I'm always searching for those things in our students, myself included. And what a great journey to be in those discussions. I'm so lucky.
Yeah, that feels so heartwarming for me to hear that so many students are interested in ethics. That gives me like a lot of hope for our world that that's the kind of topic the kids are interested in, instead of like AI, which I know everybody's into, but ethics, is really the name of the game. And really everything in our life is based on our character, and we all make mistakes and we can learn from them. And none of us are perfect. Like I'm not perfect, but I've noticed that, yeah, like when I do these thorough inventories of myself, I look into my character, I'm like, wow, like this is why this happened, because this kind of a character defect that needs to shift, like that kind of thing. And then those patterns kind of go away, right? So it's such an important topic. And then in the world today where
Yeah.
everybody's divided, how do we apply ethics, I guess, like in the discussions, right? Like you said, it's not right versus left, like blue versus red or whatever. There's actually like common ground. So could you share a little bit about that, your perspective on unity and that kind of stuff?
So thank you for you're such a good listener. You hear what I'm saying, you add to it. It's really good, just on a side note. So I will give you a quote from Rumi, who was a Sumi poet, I believe, from 200 years ago. But I love this quote, and it says, "Out beyond the doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Out beyond the places of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." And I asked the students, what does that mean? What do you think that means? And we talk about it. And, but my ultimate takeaway has always been, it's not about showing someone you're right or you're wrong or all of that, and creates this division. It's more about let's meet somewhere in a peaceful state of mind where we just talk, converse, and see where it takes us and allow it to take us to some new potential spaces and not be threatened because it wasn't my original idea or whatever. And maybe it solidifies my original idea. I don't know, but allow the space to just be together in conversation. And to me, that is moral conversation. It's respectful. It's not just putting my agenda first. It's really listening with a desire to hear what you're trying to tell me, as opposed to me start preparing my defense. It's like, no, let me pull from you. And it's not just your words, it's how you're saying them and how your body's moving. All that stuff takes high intelligence to get the whole message. And you got to give it your all. And when you give it your all, you're going to get a lot from that. So, I don't even know if I answered the original question, but because I'm wandering.
Basically saying like we need to like when we go into a discussion with someone, let's say we disagree on something like the topic of vaccines or something like that, let's say, which is like getting everybody riled up right now. It's like instead of just saying this is my argument, this is my argument, it's like let me first listen and hear you out fully, then I'm gonna listen and hear you out fully. So that's the space you're talking about, is like who's right, wrong. And honestly, like I have to admit, like this is hard, right? Like because right now there's a lot of hot button topics that people are kind of topics about, but yeah, like you said, it takes great emotional intelligence to be able to do that, and that's something like I'm trying to work on. And I think, wow, like just imagine if everybody in the world was doing this right now, like in the political forum, like if that's how the discussions were, like, and people were finding the common ground. Maybe it's not this way or that way, but maybe there is a third thing we can all come together, that humanity can all live in peace together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, one little exercise I do in class, to your point, is I give them a quote from something in the current news, and I'll ask them to vote. We have electronic voting in the class, and I'll say, do you like this? Do you disagree with this? Or you're not sure, you're processing? And they will all vote. And then I will tell them who said it, and I will have them re-vote. And they will change their mind depending on the source of the comment. And I said, this is the problem. Because if a Republican hears that a Democrat said it, they're done listening. And if a Democrat hears a Republican said it, they're like, yeah, well, that's wrong. So we've already lost the chance for conversation by the label of the source. And I'm always like, see, that's the wrong order of events. We have to just start with, what do you have to say? I don't really care who you are. I care that you're somebody, you know, but whether you're powerful or the person on the street or whatever, none of it matters for me to be a good listener. But we're in a time, and this has been a challenge for forever, but it's really tough right now with our political parties. They're just not listening to each other because they know it's the other party. And so I'm like, well, that's a terrible approach. You know, I'm all against it. People always ask me my party. I said, I am not in a party. I'm in the JJ party. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to try to do the best I can. We're going to try to do an abundance of love everywhere we can. It is not easy. It is hard work. You got to be courageous and brave to be that kind of person. And you're going to be ridiculed, and you got to be okay with all that, because at the end of the day, do you believe in this thing called love? And I'm like, yes, I do. But it's not easy. This is not a joke approach. This is like buck up and be a loving person. It's going to take everything you got, because there's all kinds of forces that are challenging that. And I'm really reminding people that's why I'm not affiliated with either party. I will vote according to what the issue is, and let me listen to the pros and cons, and I don't even want to know who said them. I just want to
I,
try to learn more about the issue.
yeah,
What? Sorry, you cut out.
no, I said I agree with that. I'm the same. I always tell people I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat. I'm my own person, and I'm gonna basically it's issue by issue. These things I agree with this side, these things I agree with this side, because It's kind of like I've never picked between just two choices. I go to a restaurant, I order like a bunch of different things, you know? So how can I, like I just, yeah. But that's what they've done. They've really riled us up. It's almost like sports teams, like I don't know what sports team, like Raiders versus whatever, right? So it's kind of like that's how people have become. It's like, this is my team, I red, and we're all this. And I'm just like, whoa, like, is there a revolution coming? Like it almost feels like that kind of energy is building up. So I'm hoping we can kind of diffuse it and humanity can come back to being humans again. Love, which is not a weakness, it's a strength to be able to love
Yeah.
we disagree with, right? So,
Yeah, but that's why I say it takes courage, it takes intention. That like, something I believe is while there are all kinds of challenges in the world and there's challenges in our own lives, but I'm not gonna impact Donald Trump a whole lot. If I call, I don't sense he's gonna pick up. But who I do impact are every student that walks through my door, or talking to you or my neighbor when I get the mail. And so I just kind of remind myself I have got to focus most of my efforts on the micro. The macro can beat me up, but I'm not probably going to have a lot to do with it, but I might even affect it more by being in the micro, and just saying, how can JJ be his best today? And almost preparing myself when I get out of bed, take a shower, I'm going to class, and maybe I'm tired, maybe I'm not fully energized, and I'm like, get it together, JJ. You only got 80 minutes with these students. You make them count. And sometimes I have to get it together. And you know what? I'm good with that because I don't want my lazy excuses to stop an opportunity. And so I'm all about the micro and just the people that I get to really meet and be with. And I can't do it all right all the time, but I do know I control that and it deserves everything I got to what I can give, for today,
yeah.
So
Yeah, that's why I wanted to interview you because I really do believe that you walk the talk. I mean, you've impacted all of us. We still all talk about you, and most of us don't remember any of the other teachers' names even, So that says a lot
yeah.
sorry, there's like a plane going by, but in that level of stress, grad school, where we were like, I remember we're going to school from like 7 a.m. and then we had like teaching till 6 p.m. and then we had 3 hours at night to write our papers for a year and a half. The lessons you taught us is still staying with all of us. So I like that point. The plane is like getting louder, sorry, but just gonna let it pass. So focusing on the micro, like what difference we can make with each person that's in front of us day to day. Like whatever is our work, whatever is our family, our friends group, like how can we love them and understand them and basically like try to be the best we can be. I love that. Cause yeah, I mean, in a world right now, I think a lot of people are kind of feeling out of control because they read the news and they're like, oh my God, how am I going to impact it? But we can totally impact it with the people in front of us, you know? And yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to add just one point because I find this happens to me. We all have, really busy minds, typically, as humans. And with these goals that I think are worthy, come mistakes, come, missteps. And when I'm teaching in front of 90 people, I say something wrong. Maybe I'm making a joke and it was a bad joke, I whatever. And so I think that the piece that I have to keep thinking about is we got to give ourselves a little grace because being a loving person doesn't mean you're going to be perfect at it or even great at it all the time. You're going to screw up sometimes. You're just going to, I'm trying to be funny and it's not funny, and uh, the two things I am trying to teach myself so I don't beat myself up too much is you screwed up. It's going to happen because if you try to be loving, you have a better chance to make a mistake because you're aiming high, right? You're not, it'd be easy to not be this way. I always tell people if someone just lectures to you, that's the easiest thing there is to do. I just read my slides, just whatever. But the moment I interact with you, that's risky business. And that risk is worth it, but understand you're going to make mistakes and you can be okay with that if you give yourself a little grace, you give the other person a little grace, and then you know what? You apologize if that's what's needed, or you go rectify whatever you did wrong so that you're like, I can be whole again because I am not a perfect person, but I want to be excellent in these goals of love and community and whatever. And I'm going to be learning till I am not here. So, but that space for that forgiveness and grace and admitting and all that has to be there so it doesn't become so burdensome. So it doesn't become, oh my God, being a loving person is just too hard, you know? It's a really high bar. So I
Totally.
wanted to add that thought because that's something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, because sometimes exactly like I've made jokes and I'm sure it offended somebody. And in my heart, like I was just making a joke, but maybe somebody heard it and they're like, oh my God, how careless. How could they joke about something like that? Like I went through that. Maybe like I've never experienced that. So I've made like a sarcastic remark, right? So you're right. We have to kind of like forgive ourselves and be like, okay, my intention was good. I'm trying to do something good. I'm going to make mistakes. And when I know about them, I'm going to correct them, you know? And so I think that's really important. Exactly. Like grace and self-forgiveness, because they always talk about forgiveness and spiritual paths. Like speaking of spirituality, right? Like they always say forgiveness is like the highest spiritual lesson, but they don't talk too much about self-forgiveness, from my experience. I think that's like a more of a new topic. Like how do we forgive ourselves and really let ourselves off the hook? Because I remember one time I was talking to God and I felt God say, like, you think I want a bunch of perfect little like people following me? He's like, that's not what I expect of you guys. Like he literally, the voice, whether it's a he or she, it was like, I want you guys just to like try your best and be good people and have a relationship with me. Just like a very loving, grounded parent energy, not like an authoritarian, perfectionistic military religious figure at all. So I think we've put that on ourselves, or maybe it's like the socialization of the Western world. There's so much like, what is it? Like it's almost like what is it? Like it's not really like community oriented. It's more individualistic, right? Like everybody's trying to kind of just learn and be better. So then that kind of creates that perfectionism, like I have to achieve this or this. But like you said, and the funeral, nobody cares about your grades. Nobody cares about your achievement. They care about how you treated them. Like the people that are going to come up there and talk, they're going to be like, he was there for me, he listened to me, she loved me, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I love that. That's such an important point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything
Yeah.
else that you
Thank
feel
you.
like is important to share as we're kind of like wrapping up? Is there any other topic that you wanted to cover?
Well, Um, I do want to just tell your people that I decided because Punty and I rarely get to talk, we're both doing our little worlds and hopefully microcosming them all we can. But I did spend this morning listening to I want to just people, if they get a chance, I'm plugging you because I met you in 2012, I think we decided, at UCI, and even then, even back then, and I remember students, I really do. Well, it's the best part of the job, there's no question. And I remember you from the very beginning, and we kind of bonded over an ankle injury and all that, but you've always been this kind of special light. We all have our own lights. You have one kind of bridging the realm of the cosmos in a sense, or however people frame these things for themselves. But I always feel it from you. And I listened this morning to tell me the lady's name again, who
Ashley
interviewed
Gunner.
you.
I think Ashley Gunner's podcast, my friend Ashley, the interview. Ashley Gunner.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was in 2022. It was, 3 years ago. And I was only going to listen for 2 minutes. I was working on something. I was eating my breakfast. And then I was like, hey, this is pretty good. And I just kept listening to where I ended up listening to the whole 55 minutes or whatever because I think one of the things that happens in that discussion for me is I love hearing ideas, and you had many of them, of just talking about possibilities that many of us never even think of. And I think sometimes people get threatened by new ideas because, we're trying to build a foundation. I'm trying to believe in X and Y. And so then when someone comes in with Z, it can make me a little nervous. And I say this to my students all the time. Nobody said you had to change from what you heard. All you have to do is really try to hear and then decide. It's your decision what you do with it. And I think listening to that 55 minutes today did me a lot of good because you introduced a lot of ideas that mean a lot to me in the spiritual realm of living. And just for people to consider, it doesn't mean they've got to suddenly be X or Y. It just means, wow, there's so much out there that can be in here. So why not build your expanding universe of self, and I got that from listening to that. So I thank you publicly or whatever this is. And it was just awesome. So I'm just recommending it. That's really the last thing I have to say, other than Zot from the Anthill.
That was our symbol. Thank you so much, AJ. It means so much to me because I admire you so much as a teacher. So hearing a compliment from you means the world to me. And, that's what I'm hoping. I'm just hoping that I can go out there and give people some information with this channel, with the interviews, that just to like make them realize they're not just like this thing. Like we're so much more, and we have a loving creator that loves us. And there's many paths to like get that. And that, yeah, I just want people to like be their true self. Like you said, being in the flow, and what a world will look like with everybody being in the flow and being a little more patient with each other, meeting in
Ooh,
that field of oneness instead of like me versus you. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
yeah,
And
we would.
oh,
Yeah.
it would kind of blow everybody's mind, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
If we can all do what you just said, we're going to see a whole different program. But one person at a time, including ourselves, is that what is it? You can't walk a mile without that first step. So we'll just keep stepping.
Absolutely, absolutely. And hopefully we can get the whole UC Irvine old crew back together and have a little reunion so everybody can get to see everybody and catch up. Thank you again. I hope you have a beautiful day of teaching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, Professor JJ.
Thanks, Pantia.